when you come back through the curtain after a performance like that, what's Gorilla like? I mean, it's the end of the night, so I'm sure a lot of the guys have already gone to the next town. But what's going on when you walk through the curtain? It's your first main event. You know, you had to be feeling the adrenaline out there. When you come through the curtain, were you disappointed with the reaction, or what was the reaction?
No, nowadays it's different. So back in the day, you go through the curtain, people weren't all there to high five you and tell you how great you are. Vince would talk to you if you wanted to, or Bruce would if you wanted to, and you'd greet your opponent and you'd leave. Nowadays, there's the parade. You come back from the curtain, you go over and you get an acknowledgement. You go over and say, "How was it?" And so you want somebody to tell you how great you are and all that stuff. That's really changed. I see that now, and now they get feedback, so that can be good. I'm not bashing, what's going on now, but back then, people expected you to have a good match. Not that they don't now. I'm not bashing these young kids now, but people expected you to have a good match. I remember walking back, Dan Madigan was there, and he goes, "That was the greatest thing I've seen." He goes, "Oh my God, it was so bloody." We knew it was going to be bloody, and we wanted it to be bloody. Maybe not that bloody, but we wanted it to be bloody. And Vince came up and hugged me. I had blood all over me. He hugged me. I saw him do the same thing one time with Shawn Michaels. I thought it was cool, so he did it with me. I thought it was cool too. And then Eddie came back. I said, "Thank you." And Eddie got something to drink. When he we get something to drink, all the blood of his head poured into this cooler where all the drinks were, so nobody else could get anything to drink the rest of the night. But it was completely different back then when he came backstage. There wasn't a welcome party for you to, assuage your ego and tell you how great you are, give you feedback. It was just, guys expect you to go out there and wrestle.
Well, I'm not talking about the other performers as much as I was Vince, because I know this had to be a real test, for him and for you. Like, he wants you to succeed. You want to succeed, but both of you are like, is it going to work? Shit, I don't know. I'm going to try my best. And then when you come through, I mean, I'm not trying to be that guy, but you got to be looking for, what did Vince think, right? Is he?
Yeah. It's a side eye look. It's a side eye look we used to always have. You walk in and you want to see if Vince wants to see you or not, but you don't really want to look at him because you don't want to beg. You don't want to beg for approval. So everybody who comes back wants feedback. I don't mean to diminish the young guys today come back expecting feedback. We wanted it too. We just didn't get it. And so I did come back, and Vince was there waiting for me. Told me he thought it was amazing. Very happy with it. And that made me feel good. I felt like we had hit a home run. I really felt like we had done well. And when I came back and Vince told me that, and I saw Dan Madigan there, he told me the same thing. Bruce said the same thing. Pat did. I felt really, really good about it, and then Eddie had to get stitched up and all that. And, so the emphasis shifted of what we were doing.
This is before, everybody's got an iPhone. So, we're not getting as many text messages or social media or things like that. But when you come back after a match like that, this is your first main event. Is your voicemail on your phone full from people that in your real life who are calling to give you an attaboy, or is that not the way the business was back then?
No, it wasn't. Business wasn't that way back then. I don't even know I got one message. I'm sure I got a message, from my wife, but that was about it. I guess we were married at the time. Maybe been engaged, but I didn't get to my knowledge, I didn't get one message. The boys didn't do that back then. Now it's different, and I actually like it now. I send guys messages all the time after a match, or something, or a promo, or they see them on TV about how good they did. It's different now, but back then guys just didn't put each other over like that.
It just feels like to me, and I get it's a different time, it's a different era, but as a fan, I want to think that, Ron Simmons left you a voicemail, or The Undertaker's like, dude, you did it, or whatever. But
now in fairness, I believe Taker was there that night, so Taker would have said something. Yes.
Yeah. So listen, man, now that you've got the bloodbath over, we got to keep this thing going. And of course, this was.
Yep. And hey, Conrad, let me say one other thing. People talk about the match, and I heard you and Bruce talk about it, and I don't disagree with anything you guys said, especially what Bruce said. There was too much blood. Vince said there was too much blood. He didn't tell me that, by the way. He was very thankful for what we did, and very thankful for the amount of blood that we were willing to spill for him and for the company. It may have been too much, but look at what we were up against. Eddie had vouched for me. His reputation was on the line. He's a new champion. He's a small champion. He's 240 pounds, but small, to WWE standards, especially back then, the great big champions, especially following Brock Lesnar. I knew it was a one-off if it didn't work. I mean, I knew we had to do something epic. And so was it too much blood? Yeah, it could have been, but you wouldn't be talking about it today like we talk about it if there's anything to changed. I mean, that changed the whole dynamic of everything. So I certainly don't regret the amount of blood that was out there, because and Eddie didn't either. We knew we needed something epic, and we did it.
let's talk about June. The next month, you guys are going to be on a flight. You're going to be working some international shows. You're going to be in Germany. And Eddie is over like Rover, huge in Munich. Heroes welcome. But the next night, he didn't get a bigger reaction than The Undertaker. And maybe there were a few fans who weren't sold on Eddie Guerrero being in the top spot. And a few fans start to chant, Eddie sucks. Eddie apparently snaps. This is too much for him. And he gets the mic and says, Eddie doesn't suck. Germany sucks. And he tries to work as a heel for the rest of the match. And this was written about in the Observer as being unprofessional. That was the report they were hearing from people inside the company that, he had maybe he had been gotten to by these fans. You were there. What can you tell us about this? Were you just over like Rover back from the auto days, or what's going on
here? Big Show loves to tell the story. We wrestled in Germany one time, and Big Show, I had done all promotion for there. I'd worked for Otto, and I said, hey, Big Show, and Big Show goes, hey, they're going to take me as the baby face. I said, okay, no problem. I didn't tell Big Show that I'd been doing publicity for the whole tour. I'd worked for Otto over there. When I got up for Big Show was there, I cut a promo in German, telling the German people how much I love him. The first punch, I just took a bump. I said, I'm going to sell out on Ricky Morton. He goes, you bastard. So, yeah, I felt very comfortable in Germany because I'd worked there so much. That story is 100% not true. 100%. There's nothing about that story that was written that's true. Not one thing. What happened was the night before, I'd done the Nazi salute in the ring. And by the way, I wasn't the only one that did it that night. I'm the only one that got reported. I just signed a deal with CNBC. So, I had some guys trying to cause some trouble, which they did for me for CNBC. They sent 3 emails to CNBC. I've seen them and, ended up getting me fired. And it was a big deal with WWE, and guys here's the thing about that, not to digress a little bit. Guys had done that Nazi salute over there for so many years. Nobody cared. Half our heel roster had done that in the ring. WWE rings, by the way, which people don't talk about. Nobody cared. So when I did it, there wasn't any heat. People see it now and go, oh, my God, how dare you do something like that? How dare you do something Fritz von Erich and Baron von Raschke made a living off of? Now, I understand they did it here, but every heel that went over to Germany did it. And it wasn't a big deal. But the fallout from it was a big deal. So they got on to me about it. They really read me the riot act. I'm like, guys, I didn't say this, but I'm not even the only one that did it last night. You didn't read the riot act to anybody else, just me. Because I was the only one reported, and I wasn't going to stooge anything else. And so I bore the brunt of all the heat, and I had no problem with that. Eddie had a problem with it. So the next night when Eddie came out, he was furious about me taking heat off that. Furious. Okay. So when Eddie came out the next night, he cut the heel promo on the Germans. Eddie did the Nazi salute in the ring, which nobody talks about because people don't want to, they want to put all the heat on me, which is fine. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, you're a heel. I get it.
I'm a heel. I have no problem with that. Eddie turned heel. I'm sitting there across and going, what are you doing? And he goes, Essa, you're not the only one going to get heat. And he wanted to show the office that he was going to do it too. That was Eddie sticking up
for you.
Eddie was standing up for me. He was sticking up. That's 100%. He was sticking up the office butt. It had nothing to do with Eddie sucks chants. I didn't hear one of those. I'm not saying they didn't happen. I did not hear one Eddie sucks chant. But the reason Eddie cut the heel promo was because I'd gotten the heat over that Nazi salute the night before. Eddie cuts the heel promo the next night and then does the Nazi salute back and forth across the ring. And I'm sitting there watching him going, this match is going to be real easy. So it was so bad that Dean Malenko was the agent. He thought Eddie was going to drop the title to me, which I would have never let happen. And Eddie did not even consider doing it. But Eddie was so furious that, guys were worried about what he was going to do next. But he was sticking up for me. So that story about why he did it, 100% not true. What I'm telling you is what happened.
Listen, I know that everything we say on this show sometimes can get clipped up and posted out of context and on all that. I know this sounds silly, but I do feel like in 2024 we need to say, John is not a Nazi supporter. My goodness, he was getting heat 20 years ago, doing what wrestlers have done forever. But John, nor Bruce, nor myself are Nazi supporters. What are we?
It's crazy. You got to say that.
Yes.
And the thing was when I did the Nazi salute in Germany, which I say people that sounds crazy. Clip that out and put it out there, which probably somebody will.
Right. It sounds
somebody will, and they put the clip. Me doing. So I'm giving somebody an idea right now, and I could care less. If I hadn't been canceled by now, I'll never be canceled. So I do that in Germany. people had been doing that in Germany for decades, in German rings. WWE talent had been doing it. I could list the number of talent. I would never do it because I don't want them to get the heat I get.
Yes.
But I can tell you the number of talent. You would be, it was half our freaking roster had done it. And you're not making fun. You're not sticking up for the Germans. You're making fun of the Germans. You know, when I came back to work, you know, I was somewhere on a TV show, and a guy said, "Hey, man, as a Jew, I wish you hadn't done that." And I go, "I'm sticking up for you. I'm making fun of the Germans, but I'm not want to get into the whole thing about, you know, what it was about. I'm making fun of the Germans for doing something, the same that Fritz von Erich and Baron von Raschke made a living off of, but it didn't get any heat. So you know, the fallout from it was worth it. Doing it itself was not."
Yeah, it is fascinating that people misconstrue that. Like, it's bad guys doing it over there, not to say, look, I'm like you guys, we're together. It's no, it's not a vow of solidarity. It's to make you hate him even more. It's silly. But the narrative out there was Guerrero was said to be exhausted from the travel, not in the best shape physically because of the blood loss at the pay-per-view. And as noted almost every other week, he's physically hurting so bad. But in this position, he feels the pressure, like he's got to keep going. And there's the pressure of playing to bad houses as he's the top guy, even though no one blames him. So the narrative in the newsletter was, boy, he snapped on that fan and said, Eddie doesn't suck, Germany sucks, because he was cracking under the pressure of being champion. So all these years later, 20 years later, to have the context of, no, he snapped out of solidarity for you to stand up for you, man, that frames it in a whole new light.
Yeah, Eddie was sticking up for me. It was a really cool thing that he did. When he did it at the time, I thought, what a wonderful dude. You know, I knew how great it was. But the problem was that we had to wrestle the match. He had just turned heel against a heel. And so he had to wrestle the match. The crowd now has no idea who to cheer, who to boo. You know, they still want to be with Eddie. Thank God most of them didn't understand English, and so they didn't really know what he said. And the Nazi salute, they may have thought that he was somehow making fun of me or something, because people loved Eddie. So, but the match was pretty tough after that. But it was 100%. It was Eddie sticking up for me. It had nothing to do with anything that was mentioned in the newsletter.